there comes a moment in every person's life when they finally understand a truth that is both heartbreaking and freeing. Not everyone who walks with you is meant to stay with you. You don't learn this truth through calm reflections or gentle realizations. You learn it through the silent breaks that happen inside the heart, the slow drifting of someone you thought would always be beside you. A friend whose messages fade, a partner who stops trying, a family member who no longer feels familiar, a person you held close who suddenly feels far away. And when it happens, you're left wondering what you did wrong, why things changed, and whether losing them means losing a part of yourself as well. This is the story of a man named Elias, a person who spent most of his life trying to understand why certain people loved him loudly but left quietly. Only later did he realize that the leaving was not always a betrayal. Sometimes it was a necessary season, and like all seasons, it carried a purpose. Elias grew up believing that relationships were proof of his worth. If people stayed, he was good. If they left, he failed. That mentality followed him deep into adulthood. He held on to friendships even when they treated him like convenience. He stayed in love with someone who offered him only pieces while he gave everything. He said yes to everyone because he feared that one no might push them away. He lived his life in a constant state of emotional negotiation, trying to earn permanence in a world where everything is temporary. The turning point arrived softly, not dramatically. It came on an evening in early autumn, standing at a quiet bus stop after a long day. The sky was gold and tired. The air smelled like endings. Elias had just left a gathering with old university friends, people he once believed would be his second family. Yet during the meetup, he realized he was no longer part of their rhythm. They talked about weekend plans he wasn't invited to, inside jokes he didn't understand, chapters of their lives they forgot to include him in. He laughed when they laughed, but he felt like a guest in a place that used to feel like home. As he stood alone, waiting for the bus, something inside him cracked, not painfully, but truthfully. He realized he was clinging to the ghost of what things used to be. People weren't leaving him, they were simply moving to the next season of their lives. And he was still standing in the last one, afraid to change. That night, as the bus rumbled home and city lights blurred past the window, Elias began to accept something he had resisted for years. Some people leave not because you are unworthy, but because their part in your story is complete. He started thinking back to others who had drifted away, a childhood friend who stopped calling, an ex who outgrew the relationship, a colleague who once felt like family but eventually chose a different path. At the time, each departure had felt like a wound, but now he saw them differently. His childhood friend leaving forced him to step out of his comfort zone and meet new people. His ex leaving pushed him into therapy and made him confront the parts of himself he had ignored. His colleague leaving opened opportunities for him to grow into a better version of himself. Every goodbye had carved space for a new beginning. Every departure redirected him to places he never would have reached if everyone had stayed. And yet, even with this newfound clarity, a small ache remained, a longing for things to remain unchanged, even though change is the nature of life. One evening, months later, Elias went on a long walk through a quiet park. It was the same place where he used to meet his old friends during better times. He watched as the wind shook loose a cluster of leaves, gold, red, and amber, letting them fall softly to the ground. It struck him how naturally the trees let go. They didn't cling. They didn't chase the leaves. They didn't apologize for changing or for shedding parts of themselves. They simply trusted that new leaves would grow in their own time. Every year, trees lose what they were to become what they're meant to be. And Elias realized that people are not much different. Some friendships are like spring, vibrant, new, full of hope. Some are like summer, warm, consistent, the feeling of belonging. Some are like autumn, beautiful, but slowly fading. Some are like winter, cold, quiet, a reminder that even endings are temporary. The mistake we make is assuming everything must be permanent. But permanence isn't the goal, growth is. And growth often requires letting some people go so that you can grow into the person you're meant to become. Elias didn't transform overnight. Healing rarely happens in dramatic moments. It happens slowly, in small realizations, quiet mornings, and everyday decisions. He began saying no without fear. He reached out to people who made him feel seen and dropped the weight of those who didn't. He healed old wounds without reopening old doors. He stopped trying to fit into places that no longer had room for who he was becoming. And the more he grew, the more he understood that everyone is walking their own invisible path, sometimes beside you, sometimes ahead, sometimes away. Their leaving isn't always a rejection. Sometimes it's a redirection. Sometimes it's protection. Sometimes it's simply life moving as it must. Years later, Elias built a quieter, more aligned life, not filled with hundreds of people, but with a few who truly mattered, people who showed up, stayed present, and chose him as consistently as he chose them. He still thought about those who drifted away, but no longer with bitterness or sorrow. Instead, he felt gratitude. They were seasons that shaped him, teachers in disguise, reminders of the kind of people he wanted to keep, and the kind he no longer needed to chase. And perhaps that is the real lesson. Some people are bridges, some are blessings, some are lessons, some are mirrors, some are chapters, and some are the gentle reminder that life changes, and so must we. When someone leaves your life, it doesn't mean your story is over. It simply means their role in your growth is complete. And your next season is waiting. Your life does not shrink because someone leaves. It expands. Your world does not end because a chapter closes. It begins again, wiser, softer, stronger. So when people leave, let them. Not out of anger, not out of pride, but out of understanding. You are meant to grow. You are meant to evolve. You are meant to live a life that aligns with who you are becoming. And the right people, your people, won't need to be chased. They will choose to stay. They will weather every season with you. They will grow beside you, not away from you. In the end, Elias didn't fear goodbyes anymore. He finally understood that losing people wasn't the end of his story. It was how his story found room to continue.